Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield.
Colin Cowherd called Baker Mayfield's exact career in 2018 and got killed for it.
Baker Mayfield turned some GMs and scouts off.
He sat across from Baker on live TV and told him he could play in the NFL, but he'd be headhunted for his antics.
Do you think it's possible you've made yourself, though, a little bit of a target?
And maybe not reach his full potential because of his personality, while alienating multiple people in the process. The football world brushed it off as a hot take from a talking head who just didn't get it. 8 years later, every stop of Baker's career has proven Colin right.
The worst player in the NFL.
I could tackle Baker Mayfield.
Now a contract standoff in Tampa Bay brings his whole story full circle. And the reason that Baker's actually in this situation sounds a lot like something Colin said back in 2018. The thing about Colin Cowherd's read on Baker Mayfield is that it was never a complete takedown. People hear the name Cowherd and assume the worst because he's built a career on strong opinions and even louder delivery. But if you go back and watch the actual segments from 2018, the tone is measured. He liked Baker and said so repeatedly on and off air, but Baker still didn't like him. Colin's take was never that Mayfield was bad, it was that he was good, and good has a limit. Before the 2018 draft, an NFL head coach told reporters that Mayfield was over-the-top cocky after the Senior Bowl. When the coach asked Baker about the other quarterbacks in the class, he rolled his eyes at Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, and Lamar Jackson. Albert Breer, one of the most connected reporters in the league, wrote that Baker rubbed GMs and scouts the wrong way in Mobile. It wasn't an outburst or a blow-up, there was just a defiance to him. This is who I am, take it or leave it kind of energy that people in those interview rooms weren't used to seeing from a prospect who was supposed to be on his best behavior. Baker said things like, "You forgot who your daddy is, I'm gonna have to spank you," before a game against Baylor. And Colin pointed out that that doesn't really sound like Peyton Manning or Brady or Joe Montana. It sounds like a guy who plays with an edge. And the edge is real, but the edge also cuts both ways. Then Colin brought Baker on his show for a full interview, and this is where his take got even sharper. He told Baker to his face, "I don't think you're a bust, you can definitely play in this league, I just don't think you're Russell Wilson." He compared it to saying Trae Young isn't Steph Curry. Not an insult, just a different tier of player. He said Baker was accurate, that he didn't hear footsteps in the pocket, and that he kept his eyes downfield when people were bearing down on him. Those were compliments, real ones from someone who's supposed to be a hater. But Colin also said Baker wasn't the biggest, strongest, or most athletic, and that he would be asked at some point in Cleveland to elevate the players and organization around him the way Russell Wilson did in Seattle and the way Tom Brady did in New England. Colin's question was whether Mayfield could actually carry a franchise, coach a city, the way the elite guys do, and his answer was no. Not because Baker lacked heart or talent, but because his game depended on what was around him. He didn't believe he had the personality to handle everything and take it in stride. But nobody really wanted to hear that. The draft crowd was too busy comparing Baker to Drew Brees because of the size, with the accuracy, and the underdog story. Oklahoma fans were too busy reliving the Heisman season, while the Cleveland Browns had already fallen in love with the swagger. And so the take got filed under Cowherd being Cowherd and the world moved on. But Colin never really moved off the take. Years later in 2026, he would say that almost the same thing word for word. He's one of the 20 best quarterbacks on the planet. Not the biggest, not the strongest, not the most athletic guy, but the guy's got something. That's almost the exact same read from 2018. Unchanged because nothing in Baker's career gave Colin a real reason to change it. He's matured for sure, but the ceiling that Colin named in 2018 is the ceiling that Baker has hit at every single stop. The difference is that now, finally people are starting to listen. The chip on Baker's shoulder didn't start in the NFL. It started long before that in a high school in Austin, Texas, when nobody wanted him coming out of that high school into college. Baker was a two-star recruit, ranked the 1,021st prospect in his own class. His only scholarship offers came from Florida Atlantic, New Mexico, and Rice. Every big program in the country looked at him and said the same thing. He was too short, too small, not enough arm, and definitely not enough athleticism. So Baker walked on at Texas Tech, and in his first college game, he completed 43 of 60 passes for 413 yards and 4 touchdown passes, along with another rushing TD against SMU. He became the first true freshman walk-on to start a season opener in FBS history, and get used to hearing Baker being the first to do things. Then he lost his job. They wanted Davis Webb. Texas Tech told him that they were going with someone else and there was no scholarship waiting for him. So Baker transferred to Oklahoma and tried to play, but eventually due to the transfer rules at the time, he sat out the 2014 season, and spent that year running the scout team and working on his body and mind. He said that year was the best thing that ever happened to him because it taught him patience and forced him to grow up. When he finally got on the field for the Sooners in 2015, he threw for 3,700 yards and 36 TDs, leading the conference in the latter. In 2017, Baker won the Heisman Trophy with 4,627 passing yards and 43 touchdowns. He posted the 2 highest single-season passing efficiency ratings in the history of college football. He planted an Oklahoma flag at midfield after beating Ohio State on the road. He grabbed his crotch and yelled at the sideline at a Kansas game. He flipped off multiple people in the process. He got drunk and ran away from the cops, but then got arrested. He played the game like he had something to prove on every snap, because he did. Every slight, every program that passed on him, every coach that doubted him became fuel. The chip isn't an act. It's the engine that has powered every chapter of his career. The same defiance that made NFL coaches uncomfortable at the Senior Bowl is the same defiance that made Baker the most competitive player in college football. You can't really separate the two. The edge is the reason he won the Heisman, and the edge is also the reason Colin Cowherd sat across from him in 2018 and asked if that was the kind of guy you hand a franchise to. The Browns figured they could use that chip. They took Baker first overall in the 2018 draft, and he set a rookie touchdown record with 27, breaking a mark shared by Peyton Manning and Russell Wilson, ironically. The hype machine went into overdrive, and the question about him being able to carry a broken franchise seems stupid. Before his arrival, the Browns had gone 1-15 and 0-16 in the previous 2 seasons. Once Baker showed up and he set records, they finally won some games. For at least a moment, it looked like Baker may have been the savior Cleveland needed.
Matches on the season as Mayfield fires. Look at the Bucs, and then still going. It's there. It falls into the end zone for a touchdown, 49 yards.
After Baker arrived and ended Cleveland's 635-day losing streak, he became a legend overnight. He played with a fire the franchise hadn't seen since the 1980s, and the fans responded to it because they had been waiting decades for someone who cared as much as they did. But the friction Colin warned about was already building under the surface, and it would come to light in ways that had nothing to do with Baker's arm. The Browns cycled through 3 head coaches in Baker's first 3 seasons. Hugh Jackson, who Baker publicly supported for a time, was fired midway through his rookie year. Freddie Kitchens came and went in 1 season. Kevin Stefanski arrived in 2020 and brought the offensive structure that finally fit. Through his first few seasons, Baker really had no stability or consistent identity, which didn't give him a chance to settle into one system and master it. He played for a different playbook almost every year of his Cleveland career, and that's a death sentence for a young quarterback. The 2020 season is proof that Colin's nuance was right, not wrong. Cleveland built one of the best offensive lines in football. They had Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the backfield, a 2-headed run game that forced defenses to load the box. They gave Baker play action off that run game, clean pockets, and receivers who could win after the catch. He threw 26 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, posted a 95.9 passer rating, best of his career thus far, and went 11-5. In the wildcard round against Pittsburgh, he walked into Heinz Field and did something no Browns quarterback had done in 26 years. Cleveland beat the Steelers 48-37, and Baker went 21 of 34 for 263 yards and 3 touchdowns.
The end zone wide open. Hooper touchdown.
Ben Roethlisberger threw 4 interceptions. It was Cleveland's first playoff win since the 1994 season, and Baker was 25 years old and looked like the answer.
And they just didn't care. They made it happen.
Well, I know it's the cliche of cliches. Nothing lasts forever.
The following week, he was on the brink of beating the Dynasty Chiefs as well, throwing for over 200 yards again. The system worked because the system was built for him. He didn't have to carry it. Baker could win with the right pieces, but the pieces had to be there. Then 2021 happened, and it became the mirror image of everything that went right in 2020. In week 2 against Houston, a defender picked off one of his passes, and Baker, the quarterback, the man that the Browns had maybe decided was the future, went sprinting downfield to make the tackle because that's who Baker Mayfield is. His entire personality and the reason people love him. And on that play, he tore the labrum in his left shoulder. There was also a fracture in his upper arm. He played through it for 14 games in a harness because quitting isn't in his vocab, and the numbers collapsed immediately. His QBR dropped from 65.5 to 40.9, one of the largest single-season falloffs of any passer in the league. His passer rating fell from 95.9, a career high, to 83.1. 26 touchdowns became 17, 8 interceptions became 13, and an 11-5 record became 6-8. With the same quarterback, same coach, same offense, but a broken shoulder. The eye test told the same story as the numbers. Baker was throwing off his back foot, which led to sailing passes and flinching in the pocket. During that season, the Odell Beckham Jr. situation completely fractured the locker room. OBJ's father posted a video on Instagram highlighting every throw Baker missed to his son. Every route where OBJ was open and the ball went somewhere else.
Even than Julio Jones, even than Antonio Brown, than Dez Bryant at the time, it was different.
Beckham Sr. trashed Baker in the comments. OBJ didn't disavow his father's words publicly, and according to multiple reports, he didn't call or text Baker privately either, even though the two had been close. The Browns would then cut OBJ. He went on to the Rams and won the Super Bowl that very same season. Baker was losing confidence in himself, and he was also losing faith in Kevin Stefanski. After a Week 17 loss to Pittsburgh where Baker was sacked 9 times, a career high, he called out the game plan publicly, saying they didn't give rookie tackle James Hudson enough help helping TJ Watt. His camp privately wondered whether the Browns were leaving Baker out there to get beaten up on purpose, to make it easier to justify moving on. The Browns denied it, but the damage was pretty much done. The front office never engaged Baker's team on a long-term extension, even after the playoff win, and that silence was the signal. Then in March of 2022, the Browns traded for Deshaun Watson and handed him $230 million fully guaranteed.
Here is how everything shapes out. The Browns get a new franchise quarterback in Watson.
The largest guarantee in the history of American football. Baker found out on social media that the Browns ownership and front office were flying to Houston to meet Watson. It was reported that the Browns wanted an adult at quarterback, and so Baker requested a trade. Cleveland shipped him to Carolina for a conditional 5th-round pick. Baker had to take a $3.5 million pay cut just to make the deal work, and the Browns ate $10.5 million just to be done with him. 4 years after being the first overall pick, he was a conditional 5th-round pick and had to pay for the privilege of leaving. Carolina was supposed to be a fresh start, like the Febreze brothers from the other guys. He had beaten out Sam Darnold during training camp and brought the swagger with him, ready to take on Week 1. The season opened and the swagger hit a wall. He went 1-5 as a starter. His best game was his first, 235 yards against the Browns in a 26-24 loss, and after that, the efficiency fell off a cliff. In 7 games, Baker completed 57.8% of his passes for 1,313 yards with 6 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, all while having a 74.4 passer rating. A high ankle sprain against the 49ers opened the door for PJ Walker, a quarterback who had been an XFL MVP, and Baker got benched. Then he got benched for Sam Darnold later on, and on December 5th, 2022, the Panthers released him. 4 years after being the first overall pick in the NFL draft, Baker Mayfield was on the street in the middle of the season. This is the chapter that validates Colin's system-dependent read in the starkest possible terms. Carolina had no elite offensive line and no Pro Bowl weapons after dealing Christian McCaffrey at the deadline.
Breaking news tonight, the Panthers are trading running back Christian McCaffrey to the 49ers for a 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round pick in 2023.
Without that infrastructure, the physical limitations that Colin named in 2018 with the size, the arm strength against pressure, and the ability to actually lift up a broken roster were exposed. The swagger couldn't cover for the missing pieces. The chip couldn't throw a better deep ball behind a collapsing pocket. But something else happened in Carolina that matters for the story, and it was the humbling. For the first time in Baker's career, the chip wasn't enough. The defiance that fueled him at Oklahoma and Cleveland met a situation where there was nothing to push against. There was no bad coach to prove wrong, no media take to silence, no doubter to shove it in their face. It was just bad football, and a roster that couldn't help him. Baker had spent his entire life turning slights into fuel, and for the first time, he was officially swimming out in the deep end. However, he was about to get a life raft thrown to him out in LA. But before we get to that, if you're enjoying this, I'd appreciate it if you all would subscribe. It lets YouTube and myself know that you all enjoy these types of videos. Now let's get back into it. The Los Angeles Rams claimed Baker off waivers on a Tuesday. He landed in the city at 7:15 that night, got one practice, and studied the playbook on the plane. 2 days later, on Thursday Night Football against the Raiders, Baker came off the bench and drove the Rams 98 yards in 8 plays. He threw a 23-yard touchdown to Van Jefferson with 10 seconds left to win 17-16.
2nd and 10, Mayfield to the end zone to Jefferson. Is that possible? Touchdown!
2 days after landing in a city he had never played in, for a team whose plays he had to learn somewhere over Arizona, Baker Mayfield pulled off an improbable comeback win that saved his career. He called it a pivotal point in his career. He said that he found the fun and joy again after playing with the Los Angeles Rams. Sean McVay later said that Baker left a huge impression and called him an igniter. In 5 games with the Rams, Baker didn't put up massive numbers, but he did something more important. He reminded everyone what he could do when the moment was right and the pressure was on. The chip found a target again, and the swagger and the joy came back with it. That Thursday night is the reason Baker ended up in Tampa Bay, not the stats or the 5-game sample, but the story. A guy waived in December who landed in a new city on a Tuesday and won on a Thursday. That's a narrative that made a team willing to take a chance on him for $4 million. Carolina humbled him, and the Rams reminded everyone what that humbled version could still do. But before we get back to the show, we have a quick word from our sponsor over at PrizePicks. The football preseason is officially here, and there's no better place to run your game than PrizePicks, America's #1 sports pick app. We've got star players on new teams and an incredible rookie class ready to take over as we get ready for the biggest football season yet. What I love about PrizePicks is that you don't have to just stick to week action. You can lock in full season picks right now on player projections. I already put together a 3-pick lineup that I'm locked into for the year. Currently, I got Dak Prescott at more than 4,024.5 passing yards, Bijan Robinson at more than 1,149.5 rush yards, and Caleb Williams at more than 3,599.5 passing yards. Building your lineup is super easy. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, submit your lineup, and follow your progress all year long right inside the app. Plus, PrizePicks is available in all 50 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $150 instantly in lineups if you win your first $5 lineup. Again, that's download the app today and use code CLNS to get $150 instantly in lineups if you win your first $5 lineup. And I'm going to say that actually one more time. That's $150 instantly in lineups if you win your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, America's #1 sports pick app. Now let's get back into it. Baker would sign a 1-year, $4 million deal with Tampa Bay in 2023. This was his last chance.
Former OU football star Baker Mayfield is headed to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, according to ESPN and other outlets. Mayfield was the first overall pick in the 2018 draft, but has had a tumultuous professional career. Tampa Bay will be his 4th NFL team, and he'll be playing for his 8th NFL.
He was replacing Tom Brady, which is like replacing the sun. He was the lowest paid starting quarterback in the league who wasn't on a rookie deal. The average salary for that position was $37 million per year. Baker was making about $1 for every 9 his peers made. But the structure was right. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin on the perimeter. Todd Bowles and a coaching staff that tailored their playbook to Baker's strengths. Dave Canales is the offensive coordinator with his play-action quick game. Help Baker get the ball out fast and let his playmakers do the rest. He threw for 4,044 yards, 28 touchdowns, and won the NFC South, all while making a Pro Bowl once again. In the wildcard round, he went 22 of 36 for 337 yards and 3 touchdowns and buried the Eagles 32-9. During the regular season, he became the first opposing quarterback in NFL history to post a perfect 158.3 passer rating at Lambeau Field. The Buccaneers gave him a 3-year, $100 million deal with $50 million guaranteed.
Oh, welcome back. Check it out. Baker Mayfield here to stay. The Bucs agreed to a 3-year, $100 million deal with their quarterback, the largest contract in team history. Mayfield.
The contract was structured so 2024's cap number was $6.9 million. Nice. Less than a lot of other teams were paying for their third receiver. And in that season, Baker threw 41 touchdown passes, tied for second in the NFL with Lamar Jackson, only behind Joe Burrow. He racked up 4,500 yards, 3rd in the league. His completion percentage was 71.4%. His passer rating was 106.8, 4th in the NFL. 41 touchdowns is the second most in Tampa Bay franchise history for a single season, behind only Tom Brady. On a cap number that small, it was the best value in the NFL. Not one of the best, the best. This is the peak of the right structure thesis. Give Baker elite weapons, run game, play action, and a scheme that fits, and he produces like a top 5 quarterback. Colin never denied that this was possible. He said the ceiling depends on the pieces, and in 2023 and 2024, the pieces were perfect. Then 2025 occurred, and the structure cracked. Baker posted 3,693 yards, 26 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and a 90.6 passer rating. The Buccaneers were in 8-9 and missed the playoffs for the first time since 2019. They started 5-1 and then completely fell apart. On paper, Baker had his worst statistical year with the Tampa Bay Bucs, and if you're the front office, that's all you need to know as a reason as to why you shouldn't pay Baker $50 million a year. But the details tell a different story. In week 2, Baker strained the MCL and PCL in his knee plus a bone bruise. In week 3, a bicep and tendon injury. In week 7, he aggravated the bone bruise. In week 12, he hurt the AC joint in his shoulder. Levante David, one of the most respected veterans in that locker room, said Baker was going through a lot of injuries that you didn't expect a quarterback to play through. Baker himself said on a Netflix documentary, "Pain is misery, but toughness shows how badly you want something." Through week 6, before the injury stacked up, Baker was top 10 in the NFL in yards per attempt and 3rd in TD to interception ratio. From week 7 on, he was 31st in yards per attempt, 31st out of 32. The Bucs went from 5-1 to 8-9 over that same stretch. The injuries turned the top 10 quarterback into the worst starter in the league by efficiency, and Baker refused to sit down. This is the same movie as 2021. Mayfield plays hurt to prove that he deserves a contract. His production collapses, and the team uses that collapse against him at the negotiating table. The chip keeps him on the field, but it also keeps him from protecting the one asset he can't afford to lose. In Cleveland, it cost him his job. In Tampa Bay, it's about to cost him his money. And the standoff that followed is where Cowherd's 2018 take stops being a take and starts being a diagnosis. Extension talks broke down between Baker and the Tampa Bay Bucs during the summer of 2026. It was reported that the talks were finished, not paused or stalled, but done.
If he plays like he did a few years ago, when he was just dealing, throwing touchdowns, like it seemed like every drive he's ending with a touchdown to Mike Evans or Chris Godwin or whoever, that Baker's worth $50 million. The Baker of the second half last year might not be worth $5 million. He was terrible down the stretch, and so were the Buccaneers, dealing with a lot of injuries. I grant him that.
Jeremy Fowler at ESPN confirmed there had been no real progress. Baker wanted north of $50 million a year. Tampa's best offer was a 2-year deal worth slightly above $100 million. Baker stood at the podium and said he felt disrespected and undervalued. He said ownership had called him a franchise quarterback publicly, and now they didn't want to pay him like one. The 2-year length is a real insult, and it's the part that tells you everything about how Tampa actually sees Baker. A 2-year deal is what you give a bridge quarterback. Tampa can already control Baker for 2 more years with the franchise tag if they wanted to. So offering him 2 years is offering the exact same stuff he already kinda has, except you get to call it an extension in the media. Colin Cowherd's response to the standoff is a full circle moment of this entire story. He said, "I like Baker, I really do. But Baker 2 years ago was a $7 million cap hit. Last year, $26 million. This year, $40 million. He's not talented enough to win big like that." That's the exact same take from 2018, word for word in spirit. He pointed out that 7 of the 8 highest quarterback cap hits last year missed the playoffs. The parallels to 2021 are exact, and they're the reason this story just isn't about one contract. In 2021, Baker bet on himself, played hurt, his numbers collapsed, and it cost his job in Cleveland. In 2025, Baker bet on himself, played hurt, his numbers collapsed, and it's the reason Tampa Bay won't pay him $50 million. The same movie, twice. Now Baker is running it back for a 3rd time, and the structure that made him great is being dismantled around him. Mike Evans is gone, signing with San Francisco after 11 years in Tampa.
Mike Evans was interested in leaving Tampa for a variety of factors, but the Niners are the team that was interested in him, and they were talking today, and I think the hang-up, now it's going to be a 3-year deal. It's really a shorter-term deal than that, but it's going to be called a 3-year deal for cap purposes.
The safety valve on basically every broken play of Baker's Bucs career. Vita Vea has requested a trade. Todd Bowles is coaching for his job. Baker turns 32 the same month free agency opens in March of 2027. This is likely the last time in his entire life that he gets to set his own price. His career isn't a failure, it's a confirmation. The chip made him a starter, a playoff winner, a Pro Bowler, and a very rich man. The system set the ceiling every single time. Colin Cowherd said both things in 2018, and nobody really listened until now. So there you have it. Watch this next video if you haven't already, and subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching.